Hey guys, I think we're all here now. Partha, Mayur, can you hear me?
I can.
Perfect. Mayur, how about you? Yes, perfect. Okay, guys. So let's get it started. Um, I'm Alex, social media manager at Etherspot. I'd like to welcome you all to today's space. For those unfamiliar, Etherspot is an account abstraction infrastructure provider dedicated to helping developers create seamless user experiences for their dApps or blockchain protocols on EVM compatible chains. I won't get into the details as our co-founder and CTO Partha will be speaking in a minute, but Etherspot has been pushing the boundaries of account abstraction for a long time. Um, just like less than an hour ago, we announced the integration of our account abstraction infrastructure on Trust Wallet's bar smart accounts, which are now powered by both the Scanda bundler for lower gas and MEV protection and the Arca Paymaster for gasless payments. We've also been collaborating across the ecosystem. A more recent example would be the Shared Mempool initiative, which recently went live on mainnet, a collaborative work with the Ethereum Foundation along with other teams. So right now, as some of you know, we're developing our upcoming chain abstraction solution, Etherspot Pulse. If you haven't seen it in action yet, we recently released a short demo showcasing a bit of what it does. So, guys, let's talk chain abstraction. So, just a little bit of context with all the new L1s and L2s popping up, liquidity and assets are all over the place. Um, it's a hassle for users to get started, especially the real new users. They have to bridge funds, hunt for native tokens just to use a new app, and thousands of signatures, and that kind of friction is not doing anyone any favors, leading to fewer users sticking around and app struggling to grow. And this is where chain abstraction comes in. It makes cross-chain interactions feel seamless, really, right? So users can work with a single balance that they can use across chains. No need for swaps, bridges, thousands of signatures, or worrying about custody. It's all about simplifying the experience, keeping users on board, and letting developers focus on building apps that work anywhere. Um, so, so well, yeah. So basically, before we dive into today's discussion, I'd like to introduce our speakers who will be sharing their expertise with us today. So first up, we have Mayur, co-founder and CEO of Arcana Network. Uh, Mayur, would you like to tell us a bit more about yourself and Arcana?
Yeah, sure. Mayur, we've been doing Arcana for roughly about almost 4 years now. And at Arcana, we like to say that we are in the business of abstractions. So essentially, anything we can do to remove complexity from the lives of users or developers is right in our wheelhouse. It's something that we will dedicate a lot of time, effort, resources to make sure we can make possible. And outside of stuff that we've been doing in the past, which includes things like wallet abstraction, gas abstraction, we've been firmly focused on doing chain abstraction for about well over a year now. And we put out products, we have our SDK out, our protocol is in testnet, soon to go to mainnet, and yeah, it's really exciting times to see the kind of impact that we think chain abstraction will have on the Web3 community at large actually play out in real life.
Yeah, that's true. Definitely, I think we all feel the same way. Um, So yeah, thank you for the introduction. So next up we have Partha, also co-founder and CTO at Etherspot. Partha, I'd like to ask you to also share a quick introduction about yourself and some insights into your work at Etherspot.
I'm Partha, the co-founder of Etherspot, we're an account abstraction provider now building chain abstraction solution. And happy to speak to you again, Mayur. Yeah, I am I audible? I seem to hear a
Yeah,
lot
yeah,
of
yeah,
disturbance.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, perfectly.
cool.
So yeah, thank you also, Partha. Thank you both for being here. So guys, let's dive in. So resource locks, escrow contracts. Um, so what is this resource logs and escrow contract stuff, you ask? So I'd like to ask Partha if you could briefly explain what these are, and especially for those who might not be familiar.
Sorry, I didn't catch that question. Could you repeat that,
Yeah,
Alex?
yeah, definitely. So basically, I was talking about resource logs and escrow contracts. For those who are unfamiliar, if you could like briefly explain what they are.
Oh, okay. So essentially, when a user intends to complete a cross-chain transaction, in our existing setup, how it happens is that users would perform a transaction on a DApp, a bridge funds over. So the bridge then validates whether the transactions are in place, verifies that uh, the essential operations are done, and then only then releases the funds on the destination chain, right? That's how the current bridging experience is like. Uh, Chain abstraction introduces a new paradigm wherein users need not have to wait for a bridging operation to complete and provides the necessary funds of the user almost instantaneously on the destination chain. Now, how does one ensure that nobody gets griefed in this process? So you could achieve this via two methods. One, wherein the user's funds are, say, deposited into an escrow contract, which is an escrow mechanism where very familiar in Web2 terms, where you deposit some funds into an escrow account and then another party would submit proof that they have completed an operation on behalf of the user, and then the person controlling the escrow account can then release the necessary funds. So you could implement the same concept via an escrow module on um, various blockchains as well. However, this involves a user to transfer first lock his funds into a particular module, an escrow module of sorts. And then you have a separate actor called a solver, which would transfer the necessary funds of the user on the destination chain and then submit proof to whoever is controlling the escrow contract and then get back the necessary funds. This is one way to do it. The other, wherein is a concept called resource lock, although people argue that an escrow is also a kind of a resource lock, where in the resource lock, the funds never leave the user's wallet. What you can achieve this via modular accounts and session keys, where the necessary funds are, say, segregated, put it to a separate pot within the same account and locked, and once the solver performs the necessary operation on the destination chain, they could submit a proof, and this necessary funds is then gets unlocked, and the solver can withdraw it from the user's account itself. So these are the two schools of thought on how you could achieve chain abstraction. Yeah, I hope I explained that.
Thank you. That was actually a very insightful answer, and I think I think probably everyone could get in a way what you were explaining. So basically, Mayur, this next question is directed to you. So I would like to know I'd like for you to explain, what is Arcana's approach? Your designer, at the moment back then there weren't any other options on the table, and if so, what influenced you to choose it over a different approach? Did decentralization play a role, security, speed, and if not, how does your solution address these kind of concerns, about decentralization, trust, etc.?
Yeah, sure. So actually, our initial designs involved using account abstraction and smart accounts, and essentially some sort of like a resource lock there. There are multiple ways in which you can do resource lock. Uh, to me, even escrow contracts are a resource lock of sorts. But for the sake of this conversation, I think we'll just kind of keep these two things separate, like basically funds leaving your wallet versus funds not leaving your wallet. Um, so our initial thoughts were that we ought to have uh, basically leverage like smart accounts and account abstraction in a way where the user's funds cannot necessarily move without if they have been committed elsewhere. And so essentially, what you're trying to do is solve the problem of double spend, where the user expresses an intent to that they have certain funds on certain source chains, but want funds on some destination chain. And while this intent is being fulfilled, they're not spending that money elsewhere and receiving this money on the destination chain as well. So our initial design was to actually sort of do like a multi-signer sort of approach in like a custom smart account contract. And yeah the thing there was, while that was like a very sort of pretty decent idea to start with, and it solves multiple problems, right? So the fundamental thing that it like a resource lock of this type enables is that the users don't funds don't have to move, and so then solver can optimistically front liquidity on the destination chain of the user, barring of course some basic checks that happen. And so you can actually do this much faster and more efficiently. But the more we thought about this, we started to realize that smart accounts really don't have the sort of distribution or usage, first and foremost, in a sense that no one's even if people had smart accounts, no one's smart account was really fragmented. I think that's the number one reason we sort of didn't go down in that direction. If you think about it, if I'm using a smart account and I have to deposit funds into that smart account contract to be able to kind of use it thereafter and get all these lovely benefits of account abstraction, I can actually go that extra mile to make sure that I have the funds on the destination chain that I need. So, in essence, there's no real problem to solve. The problem lies in user EOAs, which are far more distributed in terms of like the number of people who use them even today, and also that the fragmentation is a very real problem there. Like I barely trade, and I have USDC, USDT, and ETH spread across all popular L2s, just trying out different apps on different chains. And this I can imagine to be a far deeper problem for people who are actually engaging in DeFi and other such things more actively than me. And once we figured this out, then it was clear to us that the problem that needs to be solved is with user EOAs, and not introduce this extra step of needing to deposit funds into some sort of like smart account. Um, and so once it's an EOA and it's an account that you basically every user has in their MetaMask or Rabi or any sort of like standard wallet, then it became clear like the way you kind of solve for this is through like escrow contracts, where you actually collect the funds on the source chains where the user has these assets, And then once they're collected, that sort of proof of collection is what is enough for a solver to be able to kind of feel safe, to be able to now front the liquidity to the user on the destination chain. And so we sort of like stuck to this design approach, and it's the most accessible design. It's the most pragmatic design in our estimation as of today. It helps users go 0 to 1 very quickly when it comes to experiencing chain abstraction and trying it out. For those of who want to try it, the Arcana wallet is available on the Chrome web store. You can just download the extension and try it out today. And yeah, so that's sort of been like our process in coming out with this design decision so far. And we are obviously excited about what 7702 can do, which kind of alleviates some of these issues that we are seeing. But I think in general, resource locks are the long term fix for something like this. It's just about finding the right sort of design for that, so that you get even more efficient and are able to do things even more faster. Basically, we've achieved like the 0 to 1. Now it's about going from say something like 1 to 10, and how do we do that best?
Thank you very much. Pretty insightful answer as well. So Partha, now I'm going to pass over the ball to you. I'm going to ask you basically the same question, like is Etherspot's design approach any different? Also, if you did consider any other option, and what really played a role in your decision?
Right. I kind of agree with Mayur that I mean escrow is probably the most low-hanging fruit model to achieve this, because most of the funds are EOAs are the most widely used wallets on EVM, and for that matter on all the non-EVMs as well. So a solution that would cater to EOAs is probably the best way to go ahead. But Etherspot being an account abstraction provider, our focus on the ERC 7579 modular accounts, we wanted to leverage that aspect and try to build something which would improve user experience without having the need to deposit into an escrow account and then proceed. This is where I'm very excited about 7702 because you could leverage all the powers of smart account on EOAs as well. And we chose to go down building a resource lock module, which would be available to any 7579 compatible wallet. And a user could essentially as Mayur said, place an optimistic lock on their funds to avoid double spends, and then solvers could go about solving and providing for the user's requested asset on the destination chain and then claim it. So, to answer your question of why, whether we considered other options, yes, we did consider escrow. In theory, smart accounts would be able to batch the deposit into the escrow account and then move on with the operation. But we chose to go down the resource lock mechanism by retaining the funds within the user's own wallet, but just using session keys by setting up permissions and to limit the amount of funds that can be locked for a specific transaction to solve a particular user's intent.
Thank you. So yeah, my next question actually initially was going to be a different question, but I think right now this order makes a bit more of sense. So one thing I wanted to ask you, Mayur, one thing that I noticed going a bit through the documentation for Arcana was that Arcana solver model avoids auction systems, right? So it prioritizes speed in a first come first serve kind of model. So how does this approach balance efficiency with fairness in solver participation? And I don't know if right now I think you only have Arcana solver, um, right? I don't know if I'm wrong, but yeah, feel free to correct me and provide us with a bit more of insight.
Yeah, so we actually, like you rightly said, we built out our own sort of solver layer, so to say. So it's essentially like a simple like Docker that al almost anyone can run. Right now, you would probably need to spin up like a very basic instance of AWS or GCP to be able to run a solver and just run the Docker image there. And it's we kind of took again trying to be as pragmatic as possible. There were nothing that was even close to production ready when we kind of had to make all of these decisions. I still don't think there's anyone who's production ready yet with who basically has like a solver as a service sort of platform. But so given that we decided to build this on our own, and then of course it came down to design decisions, what were and making specific trade-offs. So for us, we looked at the entire solver layer as something that could be eventually commoditized, democratized, and uh, and something that can eventually become very similar to how liquidity pools work today, where people are able to kind of just make deposits and supply the liquidity that a lot of DeFi protocols today leverage. It requires no like additional sophistication on behalf of the LP outside of just being able to kind of pick the correct pool to be able to supply for a particular yield and things like that. So that is the sort of like design that we wanted to get to, and we sort of started designing with that in mind. Um, I think this sort of design decision has also been validated when we've been speaking to uh, who could be potential solvers, and also hearing from so many other people about their their experiences with potential solvers. It's always been the case that you're trying to look at extremely like sophisticated actors to become solvers. And while intuitively you'd think that that's the only possible route, it's a meme right now that like Wintermute is everyone's solver, and to a very large extent that is true. And that would be especially true in an auction sort of model where people have to sort of price in risk, so to say, of specific routes. Like to say, I will accept funds on Arbitrum and supply them on Base as a particular route. And but the more we started to speak to people, the more we started to realize that sophisticated actors who had liquidity at hand are really not going to uh, engage with any sort of like solving where you there was no opportunity for uh, like uh, like returns that were out of bound or like really quite high, because anyone sitting with that sort of like sophistication and capability sitting on a reserve of liquid assets can actually, especially in these sorts of markets, do a whole lot more and get much higher ROI than what would be feasible for a user to be able to kind of cough up at any given instance. So we started to kind of then realize that this model, it can't exactly be like a PvP model where you're basically one person is pricing risk versus another person's pricing of risk, and trying to kind of get to a place where it becomes like this auction and those sorts of things. That was sort of one line of thinking that we had. Then further to that, we started to think about important things like, of course, auction models typically can lead to much better like price discovery, and it's better pricing for users because you intuitively think that when there are multiple solvers, then you are going to get to a place where one is competing with the other on price only, and as a result, then you are going to probably get better prices. But we started to think of it more like a platform on that end rather than a protocol where like delivery of the service was something that we wanted to be like top priority, especially as we bootstrap our entire service, this whole chain abstraction that we wanted to offer to people. So basically, the point that I'm trying to make is that we wanted people to be able to, when they experience chain abstraction that's powered by Arcana, they're going to get fulfillment one way or another. So we were trying to build for use cases where users just basically wanted to get things done irrespective of potentially what the price is. Of course, we wouldn't want the prices to be like extremely out of bound. Um, but the more we sort of started to think about this, it started to kind of make sense, and it allowed us to kind of very quickly build out this layer which almost acts like a managed service where you don't need special uh, you know uh, a very very special sort of sophistication when it came to being able to run a solver. So this meant that we could put ourselves on a path to democratizing that entire layer. More and more people could come in and become solvers themselves, and the only requirement would be twofold, where you are now going to basically have the liquidity to be able to front assets to users on destination chains, create these routes, and the second thing is obviously being able to like price the risks on these routes by saying that this is my fee for accepting funds on something like an Arbitrum and supplying them on something like Base, which is not very hard for these sort of like blue chip chains with blue chip assets. So as we bootstrap this entire ecosystem, we felt like this was the right sort of play to make. It is, of course, a bet that that things will go in this direction. Again, we just wanted to build something that was pragmatic, could be could be something that we could bootstrap and scale very fast, but at the same time ensure the delivery of service as opposed to uh, you know a service that may or may not end up giving the best price, but also may or may not end up actually completing in the first place. So that is sort of like been the thinking for us with our solver network, and yeah, so those were the sort of design choices and trade-offs that we had to deal with.
Yeah, that's interesting, Mayur. And I also noticed another post, I think in one of the Telegram groups or on Twitter by Greg, who mentioned that apparently solvers on CowSwap make only 1 to 6 basis point profit or something of that sort. So I was wondering when probably there would be more solver networks than actual solvers in a chain abstracted world, right? So I had a question on your setup because it's first come, first serve. And so, in all probability, for a solver to get selected for in Arcana, is it I mean, you ensure that the latency of communication between the solver's infrastructure to your orchestrating layer is the key determinant to quicker or selection as such? Is that what you're thinking of? And the second question I had is, how do you ensure the user ultimately benefits when it's a first come first serve model wherein the number of solvers on a particular chain are quite limited? So I hope you got my question.
Yeah, I think I sort of did. So Essentially, yeah. So we're obviously prioritizing latency and ensuring that the user order, like the user intent, gets fulfilled with the least amount of latency and delay. We've already introduced the sort of latency that comes with escrow contracts, but how can we make the rest of it faster, as fast as possible? Any sort of like auction model typically, and this is true for even auctions and when it comes to long tail assets and the long tail of chains where these assets are on, is that it would definitely be something that would take time. Yeah, I know it opens up so much more for solvers in terms of like the potential for what can be solved. But yeah, so we wanted to kind of ensure that we are delivering the experience, hence the sort of like almost like platform sort of approach when it came to solving and ensuring that almost nothing else comes in the way of the user's experience when it comes to ensuring that they're able to kind of fulfill their intent, because the user's intent is never to bridge, almost never to
Exactly.
bridge.
Yeah.
The user's intent is to buy Trump tokens on Radium. The user's intent is to supply USDC on some lending market. It's that, and how do you kind of get out of the way as soon as possible? So that's sort of been like our thinking, reducing the latency over there, and hence this is the sort of model we kind of took up. Your second question, can you just remind me what it was?
No, on the profitability of solvers, or rather, that was the first.
Ah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so yeah, I mean, this is absolutely true. Like, you can go speak to like a Wintermute or anyone you think is sophisticated enough and has the liquidity to become a solver today, and you will see that anyone who's sitting on that sort of liquidity and has that sort of sophistication has the capacity to make much better ROI with that liquid capital than a few basis points. I think with solving today on CowSwap, UniswapX, One Inch Fusion, all of these places, which are basically same chain swaps. The yeah, this is something that active solvers on those networks have told us as well, that it's just a few small basis points, but they're able to kind of, as long as they're able to support certain volumes, they're able to kind of make decent returns. And for a lot of like the bigger players, it's more about participation and seeing where the industry is going and things like that. So I think even in the long term, it has to be about sustainability. It has to be about something that it doesn't start out with insane like incentives or insane sort of like yield that in some time just disappears and fades away, and then you're left with almost nothing to offer. And so while you can like really look like you're able to provide significant um, a key capability when it comes to the liquidity of your chain abstraction protocol, is that, but the thing is, can you sustain it? So we've obviously gone down this route where we're telling people, giving them very pragmatic sort of like analysis of what they could expect in terms of ROI from our side. And what we are seeing is that the only way forward is to actually like democratize it and introduce this capability to not very sophisticated actors with not too much liquidity, but then allowing like this platform or protocol to be able to kind of help them get reasonable returns when it comes to them being able to putting their liquid capital to use on a chain abstraction protocol such as ours. And I think that is the only sustainable way to really do this and do this in the long term.
Fair enough. Um, Sorry, Alex, you had something else, or I had another follow-up question to Mayur on this. When we were having initial conversations with a few solvers and explaining them the product and the chain abstraction idea, they all had, each platform that they provide solutions to have a completely different interface. So interoperability of a solver with each chain abstraction protocol is still a problem, right? So you have to write customized interfaces as per the requirements. So, for example, a solver that works on cow swap might not be compatible with another protocol. So now with various chain abstraction solutions coming into play right now, do you think it would help to establish some kind of a common standard? I know 7683 is one standard which for intents, but for chain abstraction specific interface between the solvers and the orchestrator, uh, I believe there is a need for a standard. What is your opinion on these fronts, and what has been your experience interacting with other solvers who would like to be onboarded to Arcana's chain abstraction solution?
I think you're bang on about the need for standards and like this common interface, at least between like protocols and people who with liquidity who are willing to solve for these intents. I think intents goes beyond this chain abstraction. I think
Yeah.
intents are something that many people are looking to leverage as a design pattern almost. So it starts to become like a thing that um, definitely needs to find some sort of like common interface that people can agree on. An EIP is probably the best way to go about it. But what do you do when a user has ETH but wants to spend Sol?
Yeah.
Then what's the common interface there, right? So these are some of the considerations. Is that obviously all of these things take their own time, and we're simply not keen on like sitting around and waiting for people to uh, kind of create these standards. We probably don't even have the resources or the energy to kind of create standards on our own, but would love to kind of participate. And we've been participating with the 7683 standard and see where that goes. But yeah, I think the second more important point is how do you get EVM and SVM guys to agree on another common interface for something that doesn't it doesn't appeal to, especially I think the people who are at Solana as a problem, because they'd love for liquidity to come in, but liquidity is anyway flowing to Solana as we speak, so they don't see it as a problem. So yeah, we our thinking is that we just don't want to sit around waiting for all of this stuff to pan out in certain ways. We try and make pragmatic choices. We do also try and take certain specific bets that sometimes we cannot come back from. It's sort of, I think it's the lay of the land and the name of the game. And yeah, we're quite happy to do that. And it allows us to go to market. It allows us to showcase what is possible. It allows us to kind of go to the naysayers and tell them that this is the experience that you can deliver today. And once you do that, then it changes the paradigms like completely. As soon as someone is able to experience it on their own, visualize it, see it, and I think that is more important than establishing standards.
Cool. Would you be, happy to participate in any? Probably we should explore with other teams if we could come together and set up some standard. I've seen some CAIPs, but they are more relevant to EVM specific chains. But maybe it's time I don't know. We should reach out to other teams as well to see if something could come up. God forbid, if this things become popular, then we don't end up with another interoperability problem. You see what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's another meme, right? So,
Yeah,
yeah,
you need a
that's
new,
that's that's
yeah,
something. Yeah,
an
yeah, we,
abstraction
we
layer over chain abstraction, something of that sort.
Yeah, and that's sort of like the danger, and it's a slippery slope there. Because from our experience, what we've seen is that all of this, um, like when you set out to do standards, and I have immense respect for anyone who sets out to do it. It's very hard to get people to agree and see your vision, and for you to kind of give up a bit on your vision to be able to make sure everyone is happy and things like that. It's a huge operational task, and someone needs to do it, and we are happy to participate. But what we also notice is that usually these things devolve into like immense mental masturbation sessions, and
Yeah,
it leads to like it's hard. You need someone like say probably like a figure like Vitalik to come in and say, hey, this is the way and these are the reasons, and then he will concede a bit and you will concede a bit, and then everyone is happy and things move forward. But if you see with almost every major EIP that exists, the timeline is really, really long. And these are all important like conversations to have, arguments to make. Um, yeah, like I said, it's just about finding the right set of people who are well intentioned enough to kind of make this happen. But you coming up with something like this is, I think, important. We are more than happy to participate because I think it's in the greater good. Growing this whole sort of intent chain abstraction sort of landscape it's obviously far more important than pushing one solution forward. I think if we do that and manage that, or if there are ways in which we can collaborate and make that happen, then yes, we are always up for it.
sure. Let's speak offline then.
Okay, guys, thank you very much on behalf of everyone. I think you provided a lot of great info. So, well, let's keep on. Another question I wanted to ask to Partha was related to the same question I asked to Mayur. So basically, Etherspot uses a different solver model, right, Partha? So
Yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, solvers compete to fulfill these
So there
intents,
is
and yeah.
That's correct. Yeah. So, as Mayur said, we look at an auction model where the most optimum and cost-effective solution corresponding to a user's intent is chosen, and that is provided. So, this could work in few cases where there are multiple solvers on a particular chain. On few chains where there are low number of solvers, it eventually happens to be the only solver that provides the solution becomes chosen as the particular solution. But we believe an auction model is more suited or better to provide the best effective, the most efficient route for a particular user's intent. But we'll see as things go live. Etherspot Pulse is still under internal testing. We hope to have something ready by probably end of Q1 after audit. And yeah, let's see how things go.
Sure. You think are there any like relevant challenges to of ensuring solver reliability and incentivization in this kind of system?
Yeah, solver reliability is definitely a very important part of it because you don't want solvers submitting a dummy token and then claiming the necessary funds from the user, right? So should be an effective check and balance in place, and then there's a separate reputation management system that has to be built over as a wrapper around the orchestration chain abstraction service, which would manage all of this. That is another requirement. We don't want to end up with new kind of rug pulls leveraging chain abstraction. That is an important area that the teams building on chain abstraction would be focusing on, and I'm sure Arcana have thought about it as well. It's not a big deal when the solver on the chain is the only one or rather, how do you say for example, if in Etherspot's chain abstraction solution, if Etherspot is the only solver, then it's a more kind of a trusted setup. So it's okay. But when there are multiple solvers involved, it's always better that there's a layer of reputation management that's involved and it's handled. I'm curious to understand what are Mayur's thoughts on this and how they are handling this in Arcana.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right in terms of like how do you get especially in, like, say, the long tail of assets, uh, in the long tail of chains. So when you have like an obscure chain with some sort of weird wrapped asset or even the native asset of that chain, then how do you kind of get this liquidity made available to the user, to be able to do this? And this is a very real scenario. I mean, this may not seem like something very important today, but if we are to say that Ethereum's modular thesis is going to play out, if all these bets that all these L2s are making to be able to kind of enable sovereign rollups, app chains being built on their platforms, and all of this starts to happen, then you can see, almost everyone opting for building stuff out of their own chain, not sharing their state or not sharing their throughput with anyone else, and kind of trying to ensure that they're delivering the best sort of experience. And this is something that we at Arcana are extremely bullish about, is being able to support these sorts of chains and the assets on those sorts of chains. But how do you do this in a capital efficient manner? How do you do this in a way where users are obviously not going to get rugged? And it all comes down to nuance of your design, I think, and the choices that you make and the trade-offs that you make. I think solver centralization is something that is definitely something that is spoken about, in not obviously very publicly, because this is a very nuanced problem in itself, but it is something that we want to be able to kind of deal with and solve for, when the time is right for it. We are more than happy to kind of make that trade-off of centralization, as long as we are able to kind of deliver this service. But we say this because we have we earmarked like a very clear roadmap for ourselves to democratize that entire layer, not decentralize, democratize, and basically almost brute force a solution over here, where the more people you have being able to kind of supply liquidity for any particular asset, the less likely it is to fail. And then, as a consequence, you could also, while sort of guaranteeing delivery, or fulfillment of intents in general, you also kind of get to a point where you're able to, um, perhaps even compete, in terms of like capital efficiency in general. So, yeah, I mean, our thoughts around this are largely a little bit loose. We still have to like get to a place where we have a clear direction and clear path. And but yeah, these are roughly like the ideas that we have at the moment. Obviously, we're dealing with blue chip assets and blue chip chains today, but we want to get to the place where we are supporting the long tail of assets sooner rather than later.
Okay, guys. Thank you very much. So to kind of start wrapping things up a bit, um, I want to ask some questions regarding, the future outlook. So let's start with Mayur. I wanted to ask you, what's the next big step in your roadmap for Arcana? Are non-EVM chains on the horizon, or how do you address the challenges of scaling as the ecosystem grows?
Yeah, so we are currently at that point in our roadmap where we have two big challenges that we are looking to kind of like solve for at the moment. One is this very technical sort of challenge of getting to a place where the protocol is able to afford a user with ETH balances to spend SOL balances in the design that we already have. And how do you do this again in a capital efficient manner, in a time efficient manner? And that, I think, if we kind of are able to solve for, like user has SOL, as user has ETH, wants to spend SOL, and we're able to kind of deliver this with the same seamless sort of experience that we've managed to so far, then I think we will have laid good groundwork for really scaling all the way down to all of these slightly more obscure assets. I think that is the one big challenge that is in front of us at the moment. The other is obviously this is going to be the long-term challenge in terms, and this is going to be a challenge for everyone. Is just generally about around liquidity of assets and making sure that the protocol by itself, by and large, is liquid enough to kind of not only support, like say, intents worth hundreds of dollars, but how do you scale that up very quickly to things like thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands, maybe, and even millions. And I think this is possible, and it is possible to do so in a uh, fairly distributed manner, in a manner that is quite capital efficient. So these are the two major challenges that we are looking to kind of overcome. Right now, we have good ideas around this, and we're actively working towards this. But the big milestone, of course, is going to be our mainnet launch. Not everything that I spoke of will be in mainnet, but it is something that we'll keep working towards throughout the year. Mainnet is Q1, which will basically mean that apps on all the chains that we support, which will probably be about 15-20 chains by mainnet time, will be able to kind of simply integrate our SDK and give their user the multi-chain experience without those apps ever needing to build multi-chain themselves. So yeah, that's the stuff that we're looking forward to.
Great. How about your Partha?
So yeah, apart from the liquidity challenges that Mayur was speaking about, the other, which is pretty much similar to what we would like to solve on Etherspot as well. The other thing is Etherspot Pulse, which is our chain abstraction solution, is decentralized and permissionless by design. So we are looking to roll out a decentralized solution. For what I mean by that, anyone can permissionlessly become a solver, and anyone can permissionlessly join by running their own nodes to participate in the solver network as well as the chain abstraction setup. That's the reason why our solution is taking longer than expected, because we do not want any centralized form or any form of centralization to creep into the design. And we are happy to probably delay the launch unless we solve that problem, because having been working on account abstraction setup since 2019, we know the various issues that people run into when there's a centralized solution. So that's why our chain abstraction solution is decentralized by design.
Thank you very much. So last question will be a brief one, just in broader terms. What excites you the most in the chain abstraction and the blockchain space in general right now, and what are overall just your predictions for this year, 2025? Mayur, you can go first.
Yeah, I like this is a bit cliched, but I'm extremely excited about like AI agents, and obviously for very selfish reasons. I think AI agents, long enough uh, timeline. I think AI eats everything. But in the interim, we're obviously seeing burst of all of these different AI agents. I wasn't really excited or hyped about them for quite some time, but after trying out a couple, there's at least a very clear sense of direction, and people are again like wanting to like prioritizing the experience of it as opposed to simply talking about what the infrastructure should be. So I think that's what sort of excites me about the agents in general. My selfish reasons are because obviously I think before AI eats everything, I think I think chain abstraction is really something that can unbound these agents to be able to do a lot more than they can do as of today. I think that will be like a very, very big deal. Fundamentally speaking, you have agents that will talk to other agents or will talk to protocols to be able to kind of do a bunch of different things, at least on the Web3 side. And and like again, we're missing these sort of interfaces for like agent to agent sort of communication, but agent to protocol is going to be simple, like a smart contract call. And when it is something like that, then it's something where chain abstraction fits in very easily because now the protocol could be anywhere, and the agent is now unbounded in its capability to be able to kind of talk to these different um, protocols and these different smart contracts wherever they reside. So that is something that we are very excited about because I think it like chain abstraction is a straight fit there, and it's something that we are looking to kind of also start working towards ourselves.
Mayur, a bit cliched question. What's your opinion of DeepSeek?
Or no opinion. I'm not smart enough to kind of really have an opinion on those matters. I know as much as Twitter tells me.
Uh, it was a joke because people generally, I mean, think that Indians do not use Chinese products, right? So that's the reason I asked.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. No, yeah. I funnily enough, I haven't used it, and I have used ChatGPT.
All right.
But
Okay.
yeah, to just disprove that, I will install the DeepSeek app today.
All right. Yes.
Partha, how about you? Do you want to share with us some predictions you have for this year and your general outlook?
Yeah, I mean, on the blockchain side, I'm very excited about the Petra upgrade, especially the 7702 stuff, and I'm hoping soon that EIP would be accepted and rolled out on L2s and other alt EVMs as well. And as Mayur suggested, yes, really exciting time for AI agents, and especially after the recent news and advancements of what DeepSeek could achieve. I think there is a very high probability of seeing a lot of products being built within where both AI and blockchain can converge. Um, Looking forward to what can be built on that side. Also looking forward to Etherspot Pulse. Mainnet launch, yeah, as soon as things are ready, and mm, can't think of anything more at the moment. Yeah, these are the things that excite me at the moment.
Yeah, it's good, good. So yeah, basically that's it. We're wrapping up. Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you very much, Mayur, for accepting the invitation and sharing all this very insightful info with us. And so yeah, we'll be back soon. Stay tuned, and
Yeah,
yeah, see you guys.
thanks, Mayur. Pleasure talking to you as always. Cheers.
Well, likewise. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Partha. Take
Thank you.
care.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.